Hello, No Sleep community. Here's a stereotypical long-time lurker, heard you were interested in the paranormal, etc. introduction. I'm a busy person, so I like to get straight to the point. I've been gifted, or cursed, tomato, with sensitivity to the paranormal ever since I can remember, thanks to my mother's side of the family. I've been working paranormal investigations and the like, and figured I'd post some of my more interesting cases here, and see if anyone has more information that may be helpful. I go by Nemo. Not my real name, obviously. The golden rule of working with the paranormal is belief. Whatever protection system or invocation a person uses, if they believe it, then it will have power. True, this varies based on the entity and the strength of the system/belief matters. But in general, whether religion, salt circles, sage, it's all more or less the same as long as the client believes it. Hence, you'll find the methods I use change based on the case. One exception to this is that names have power. Whether you believe they do or not, your true name can be your weapon, or your downfall, depending on who wields it, hence the pseudonym. Okay, enough boring introductions. I'd like to tell you about the first real case I worked alone. This was way back in April 2008. I was only 15, but was pretending to be 18 so I could support myself. The first few months I worked alone were easy. Screen calls and emails to the website and go identify people's faulty wiring and rodent problems. Seriously, so many mice and walls, even a family of squirrels once. But this case was different. The father, DK, sent a relatively standard email. Footsteps at night, scratching sounds, doors that open and shut on their own. Nothing particularly ominous. Usually I'd put this in the shoddy construction easy job pile, but I dreaded opening that email. A shroud of fear hung in the air as I prepared to call that client. Maybe this was real. Would you think it was weird if I said I was kind of excited? I smiled slightly as I hit the call button. DK answered on the first ring. He must have been waiting by the phone. I got most of the same info that was in the email with 2 additional details of note. The house had 2 floors, and his 10-month-old daughter was terrified of the upstairs. She would cry inconsolably if brought upstairs. This is also where most of the activity occurred, and he had tried calling a paranormal investigation team already, who booked it out of there almost as soon as the sun set. I guess he didn't want to scare me off putting that in the email. At the moment he was home alone, as his wife and daughter stayed with family. I grabbed my backpack and gear to catch the next flight out. He'd even paid up front for the plane ticket, which was super nice since I basically had no money. That afternoon he picked me up from Missoula International, and it was clear he hadn't slept properly in weeks. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven beard stubble. Kinda needed a shower too. If he noticed my age, he didn't comment. I tried to assure him of my past experience on the ride from the airport, but he just glanced at me and didn't say a word. I shut up and waited. The scenery was pretty nice. We were driving into a rural part of Montana, but hey, I like pine trees. At first glance, DK's house was beautiful. 2 stories, huge garage, that expensive rock paneling outside that you see on rich people's houses. And yet, as we drove closer, I could feel the atmosphere shift. He didn't bother opening the garage door and instead did a 3-point turn and parked so the truck was facing away back out the driveway, as if you might just run at a moment's notice. Getting out of the truck was like stepping into a desert, except instead of lacking moisture, the air seemed to lack any energy or life. Even the insects fell silent near the house. DK seemed reluctant to approach the front door, so I took the lead. Grabbing my bags and approaching the door, DK stood behind me and wouldn't get any closer, so I just took the house keys from him. I unlocked the door and asked if he wanted to show me where the activity happened. He declined and said he'd wait in the truck. I shrugged and went inside. The atmosphere was palpable. It felt cold, even though the thermometer I brought registered a comfortable 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Believe it or not, entities don't always cause a physical cold pocket. Sometimes they just try to take the life and heat straight from you. The sun was starting to set outside, so I found a light switch and looked around a little entryway. It opened into a spacious living room to the right and a kitchen to the left. I went to the kitchen first and made sure the stove, microwave, toaster, etc. was turned off. Then went through the living room, with a couch and some recliners all facing a TV. I took the liberty of leaving my bags on the couch where it looked like DK had been sleeping. I just took my flashlight, thermometer, protective charms, more on those later, and phone with me. I examined the living room, looking for potential hazards. Coffee table that I'll probably stub a toe on? Check. Bookshelves with lots of heavy stuff for someone to throw at my head? Check. Huge TV on flimsy-looking TV stand? Double check. At the back of the living room was a closed door and a staircase. I checked the door. Inside was a little office room. I didn't get any strange feelings from it aside from the general soul-sucking vibe of the house, so I left it alone. No bathroom downstairs. I guess that explains DK's unkempt appearance. I turned to look at the stairs and from the corner of my eye caught a glint of red. Something was watching. I turned the rest of the way to face the stairs, but in the light of the setting sun, could see nothing. I wanted to learn the layout of the house before I started ruffling supernatural feathers, as I'd rather not get stuck with a demon in a closet or something. So I gathered my will and ascended the stairs. At the top was a hallway lined with picture frames. I flicked on the lights and picked up a pair of shoes left dangerously near the top. No tripping hazards for me. As I stepped into the hallway, I heard a groan and creaking floorboards above me. Something knew I was here, and wasn't too happy about it. The temperature dropped to a brisk 55 in the hallway. There were 4 doors on the top floor. They led to a nursery and playroom, a bathroom, master bedroom with its own bathroom, and of course the 4th door wouldn't open. It felt like ice and a foul smell that felt like death emanated from below it. I left it alone for now. I had to prepare before the sun set. I grabbed a few belts from the master bedroom. First, I gathered all the toys and small objects in the nursery and shut them in a chest, securing it with 2 belts. I did the same in the master bedroom, securing things in the closet. I used the restroom, then secured both bathrooms shut. Finally, I did DK a favor and grabbed each picture from the wall and took them downstairs. If you haven't caught on by now, the entity likes the upstairs, and I didn't want to get cut by flying glass or a trip down the stairs. In retrospect, it's pretty naive to think some leather belts were going to help with that, but hey, I was 15. I decided I should go tell DK my plan before waiting for nightfall, so I start going back downstairs. And as I get back to the couch, I hear an engine start and the sound of peeling tires. Fuck. Even though I knew he bolted, I looked out the front door. Sure enough, tire tracks and no truck. I went to try my phone, but there was no cell service. I tried the landline, but I guess no one paid the bill because it wouldn't make any calls. I was stuck in the middle of nowhere with some inhuman thing in a stranger's house. Completely alone. I sighed, shrugged, and sat down on the couch to eat a snack and watch TV. Things were going to get real once the sun finished setting. I know what you're thinking. Hello, it's able to appear in broad daylight, the guy with the truck drove away, and you're stuck by yourself. Why exactly are you watching the TV like nothing's wrong? Well, first I was 15 and very inexperienced. And second, being afraid of the entity would have given it power over me. Remember, the golden rule is belief. Of course, I'd never actually done this alone before, so I'd better hope I do everything right, and that hoping I can is good enough. Just as I was about to find out whether David Cook was going to win American Idol, the sun set, and the power went out. Great. Now how was I going to find out who won? But that was the least of my worries. It got cold. Really cold. In the light from my flashlight, I could see my breath fog as I rushed to put on my jacket. It was time to go see exactly what's behind that door. I moved to the stairs and shined my flashlight up. It was only 12 steps, and yet my flashlight didn't even reach the top. With a sinking, final feeling, I stepped onto the first stair. At that moment, a force wrapped around me from all sides. It was cold. I could feel it numb my bones as it began to pull me forward up the stairs. I fought against it, trying to step backwards to grab the rail. Hell, even to turn my head aside or close my eyes. I couldn't move. I couldn't move. Oh God, what did I get myself into? This is just like when they took... No. I forced myself to stop panicking and collected my thoughts as the force stroked me upwards. You can't fight a spiritual force with physical muscles. With immense concentration, I pushed back against a malevolent energy and began to walk upstairs under my own free will. I was going to do this. I was going to find out where she went. Oh, and get this thing out of that flaky a-hole's house. A creaking sound drew my attention. The door was opening. Showtime. I held tightly onto my protection item, a little bell. It was the last gift my mother gave me before she disappeared. Just a little trinket she picked up at some airport, but it held a special place in my heart and made me feel safe. That belief and feeling of safety is what would confer protection, and I focused on it as I approached the door, feeling the item's warmth as a white light enveloping me. Then I saw it. A black, shapeless form, the only distinguishing feature a glint of red. A demon. Well, the inspiration for the biblical demon. I stared into its gleaming eyes as a shadow enveloped me. I couldn't fight it as all light and hope drained from me. I fell to my knees. Who was I to confront something like this alone? A child pretending to be an adult? Pretending I actually finished training for this? Pretending... The bell fell from my hand. Discordant laughter filled my mind. It tore at the cracks in my sanity. Everything happened fast. I was picked up and thrown backwards, narrowly missing the stairs and instead slamming into the wall. Dazed, I stared at the door and scrambled backwards as if I could push the wall further away from the thing. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was going to get answers. The door. There was a shape. Looking at it made my head hurt. It was a man in a suit, but it wasn't. It had some undefined shape just beyond perception. Now, I know that's just what happens when something that doesn't quite exist in our world tries to manifest a defined form. At the time, though, I think I almost pissed myself. It walked towards me, smiling slightly. No one's here to save you this time. This time? Wait a minute. Yes, I've heard. We've all heard about you. Oh, where did Mommy go? It said in a perverse imitation of me. Now I was pissed. This thing knew. It knew where she was and was just fucking with me for its own entertainment. Well, where the fuck is she then? I asked as I pushed myself up against the wall. It turned its head to the side, in mock confusion. Oh, but you already know, don't you? You remember, only 14, you forgot what to say, stuttered just a bit, you lost focus. You remember, don't you? How they took her to shut up. In a rage, I threw my flashlight and charged forward. My right hook connected with its cheek and there was a crack as something in my hand broke. The entity barely moved. The flick of its hand, I was picked up and thrown again, this time landing hard on my side. I curled up, cradling my hand. And I remembered he was right. I was in training, and my mom and I were going to remove an entity from this dimension and send it back to Onolith, which is basically the equivalent of biblical hell, except that human souls are never meant to exist there. As far as I know, all human souls pass into a bright white light. What judgment is passed after that, I've got no clue. It was supposed to be a standard job, like today's was supposed to be a standard job. But I fucked up, and she was taken. It should have been me. I'm the messed up one. It should have been me. No, not this time. I wasn't just going to lay there and let this happen. I was going to figure out how to free her. And in order to do that, I had to survive the night. I stood up again. Must have noticed my change in attitude, because the hallway turned to chaos as the bathroom door burst open and the mirror shattered. This time I managed to remember that you have to use energy to fight energy, not brute muscle, and envisioned a white light shielding me from the onslaught. It worked. But I knew that I couldn't afford any hesitation or doubts this time. I walked forwards towards the entity. I was too pissed off and exhausted to remember what words I was supposed to say in order to banish it. So I stole its idea, and envisioned the white energy enveloping it, and dragging it back to Onolith. I poured everything, every iota of focus I had into that visualization as it fought against me. It said things to me, tried to argue, but I couldn't let myself hear what it said. A crack opened in the floor of the cold room, and the white light slowly dragged the entity toward it. I could feel my sanity and focus slipping as wails erupted from the portal. With one final effort, the demon slid back through the crack into Onolith and the portal closed. Silence descended. The glass stopped flying and fell inert to the ground, and everything was still. I sat right where I was for a bit, before getting my bell from the hallway, dragging myself to the couch and passing out. I woke up a few hours later to the sound of bird calls, went and used the shower in the master bathroom that didn't explode everywhere, and came to sit back on the couch. I was happy to discover that the pictures and TV made it out okay. Still no cell service, but the power's back on, and the landline worked now. Not too surprising. So, I put on my best professional act and called DK. He answered, apologized profusely for ditching me. Apparently he got too frightened when it started getting dark. Also not surprising. And the rest is history. And that, dear No Sleep, is how I ended up dedicating my life to finding a way to rescue a soul from Monolith. I'll tell you more of my experiences as I have time to record. In the meantime, if anyone knows anything about Monolith, I'd love to hear it.